Hi there guys, so welcome back to the tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be finishing up our Leopard Appaloosa horse. As you can see, I have finished up putting up most of his spots on both sides. I've also left some of them, like I said, with the ghost spots, which don't have any in the black, and then of course some of them that have the mapping. But of course, you know, you can do modifications all you want on it. You could add more mapping if you wanted. You could do anything under the sun. A couple of things that I also did was I started to fill in his mane black, because that is the primary color I wanted. And then also I put another layer of gray onto his hooves. And I also added another thin layer of pink to his nose. So the next couple of things that we're going to be doing is we're going to do his eyes. We also have to finish painting his mane and his forelock. Finish up doing his white hoof marking down here, and of course finish painting his hooves. So let's do painting his hooves first, because that's the easiest thing to do. Alright, so of course a couple of things you are actually going to need for this is you're going to need your black and most likely your white acrylic paints. You're also going to need a black pencil if you have it. I am looking for mine currently. You're also going to need a white pencil. This one. I have just a regular pencil. It's not black, it's just regular writing pencil. That'll work if you have it. And I also have a dark brown. And the dark brown should work just fine. Okay, so what we need to do is we're going to take our horse. Let's go this way. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to draw the hoof lines in the hoof. And the hoof lines are basically the growth of the hoof from the culinary band down. So as the hoof grows, it starts from the top of the culinary band and goes down. So it leaves like horizontal lines in the hoof wall. And of course you could tell how well and how fast that hoof is grown in that time frame by the width of the culinary band when it comes down and leaves the hoof growth on the wall. It's kind of like tree rings. When you look at a tree that's been cut down, the wider the tree rings are, the more water, the more everything that tree has gotten in that year, and also how fast it's grown. So we're going to take our pencil and we're going to start drawing horizontal lines all the way down the hoof. Okay? And we're going to do this all the way around the hoof. And because this horse is a Leopard Appaloosa, it's actually required by the breed registration to be registered as a Leopard Appaloosa that the horse must contain striping on its hooves. They had originally changed that registration a while ago. I'm not sure why. I just looked it up. And you may not be able to see the striping, but what they do apparently is they do some test that determines if it's there or not. So, okay. So you can see there on that hoof as well that I have drawn horizontal lines along the hoof wall on both sides. And then of course you're going to have to do that with all your gray ones. And you would also do this with your light tan hoof if you had any white markings. Okay, so there's that. Now, there is a couple optional steps that you can do. You could take your black pastel with a Q-tip and rub in on the bottom of the hoof, the areas that are the deepest and they're caved in, the sole of the foot. You want to leave a little shadow, so you could do that if you wanted to. You could also do it to the tops of the hoof wall, around, you know, the top of the culinary man and so forth if you wanted to do that. But of course, that's preference. Now, the next thing you're going to do, and you don't have to do this on your horse if you don't want to, is, especially if your horse is a show horse, generally they do not have the white residue around the culinary band. That is basically the growth area. And what you could do is you could leave a small white kind of filmy outline along the top of the hoof wall. But of course, if this horse is planning on being a show horse, you want to be as realistic as possible. And most real show horses do not have that because it's been scrubbed off during bathing and brushing and everything else under the sun that the hoof has been put to. So you don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's up to you. So now, since we've gotten that done, we actually want to start doing our kind of a mix of gray and black striping on that hoof wall. So you're going to take a little bit of black and you're going to get your paintbrush. I'm going to do a paintbrush. I'm going to get some water and you're going to thin down your black paints really, really, really thin, so they're almost liquidy. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come over here and you're just going to start making kind of lines down the hoof wall. And then you're going to take your Q-tip and you're going to kind of almost bludge it out. And you don't want to make them too thick. You just kind of want to make them lightly. And of course, you're going to smudge them out a little bit. And you don't have to do this everywhere. Just do this, you know, here and there. Alright, so I'm satisfied with that. Now what you're going to do, and you're going to take another Q-tip, pull mine down here. Get your black pastel, stick the Q-tip in there. Then you're going to come over to the hoof, and you're going to put a thin layer of black pastel dust along the whole surface of the hoof wall. And what this does is, because the pastel is so thin and you're not putting a super large amount of it, it blends in some of the pencil lines that you have done, and it also lightens the growth marks and everything that you've done on the hoof that you don't want super prominent. Okay, so it looks good. And then of course what I'll do is I'll do the bottom as well. Blow away the excess. Now, what you will need to do after this is get the feet sprayed. But of course I'm going to wait on that because I still have to do his final process of getting everything done. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. It should be okay for the time being because I'm not going to be excessively touching his feet. So what we're going to do now is, of course, I have to finish filling in his mane. Now, you have two options for doing your horse's mane. You could either do it full black, depending on what you have done with their head. If they have a, like this guy, he's got a full head of black. But if you don't have that, you could either leave it kind of a nice gray color. You could do it white. You could do it a mix of gray and white. But I have decided to just do his mane full black. And also, especially if you know that maybe later on in the future this horse could get damaged. I also like to determine, because black is easier to repair than a lot of other colors on the mane, because it usually happens is when a horse falls off the shelf or does something. Usually what happens is that the areas that is the heaviest, which would consist of the head and back, is going to be the area that's going to want to fall on the ground first. So of course it's like a cat who flips over if he's on his backside. It's kind of what the models do. So I always like to paint sometimes black if I know in the near future, but of course, you know, this is not necessary. You could practically paint any color you wanted, really. Okay, so of course we have to do the back side of the neck here. And with the black, you may have to put several layers on. That's what usually happens, is that you do have to put several layers. Okay, now, with some molds, they don't indicate a bridle path, but you've got to realize that even though the bridle path has been cut, it's still going to show the area of the horse's mane. So we need to make a small line from the mane to the forelock, here because they didn't include that in this Idicus mold, and there is indeed a bridle path. And if you didn't know what a bridle path was, it's basically a path that's been cut for the bridle. It also makes the horse look a little bit better if he's going in the show ring, so he doesn't look like a hag, if you want to call him. Because of the bridle path being cut, it's just a little bit neater and tidy and clean looking. But of course, if you don't show, you don't have to have it, but some people like it because it also makes it easier to get the bridle on and situated behind the horse's pole when you're riding. So of course I'm doing the forelock now. And because some molds have the horse's mane and forelock already kind of filled in for you, you really don't have to do any hairline, like little stray hairs. But because I really don't like this forelock on this horse, I'm actually going to make some little hairs that kind of hang down. Now, of course, you don't have to do this, but of course it does make it look a little bit cooler. Alrighty. And then of course this process would be done the same thing with the tail. Now I have already filled in the tail for the black, and what I'm going to do for the white, because some of the areas have gotten smudged off, is I'm going to take my white and I'm going to put some on my plate. As if I can get it out. Take some white. You don't need a whole lot. I always recommend just putting a little bit at a time because you never know how much you're truly going to need. Take your white and you're going to bring it down on the top and kind of blend it over the top of the black to kind of give it this faded look. And you don't need a whole lot of white, you just need enough just to kind of blend it in. Alright, so of course you don't need a whole lot of this, you just do minor with that, and of course I gotta do his legs. So we're gonna go ahead and end this video here. What you could do is follow up the other video for my painting brown eyes, because an eyes tutorial is a longer process, so go look up that to do his eyes. What I will do is I will finish up his white marking, do his eyes, finishing up any touches on his mane and tail. You need to add your chestnuts as well. And then the last tutorial I will talk about any miscellaneous things you need to know. and we'll finish up his last hoof marking and etc. So thanks for sticking with me, guys.